All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. It is Monday, February 5th of 2024 here. Looking ahead, we have a 6-game NBA main slate as well as a 2-game NHL slate. So it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. You get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there is a link in the description of this video. You get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team here. So before we get started, I did want to make a quick announcement for you guys. I have two announcements for you. Number one is that we're going to start having office hours on Saturdays. I'm going to be doing that show at 11 a.m. Eastern. So it's going to be a little earlier than the time that you guys are used to here. So be on the lookout for that show. We're going to do our first one this upcoming Saturday before the Super Bowl here. So if you guys have any questions leading up to the Super Bowl that you want to get answered before the game start, you can catch me on Saturday morning. And then also, starting next week, the day after the Super Bowl, starting on February 12th here, next Monday, we're going to be moving the show from the 2 p.m. Eastern slot to 4 p.m. Eastern. So just so you guys know, we are going to be making a change there. It's something that we were mulling over for a little while here. So I'm going to be reminding everybody as the week goes on every single day so people can, be aware of that announcement, but just wanted to mention that at the beginning of today's show. All right. So with that said, we are going to jump right into questions here. Looks like our first one came in from Great White Shark. And it looks like my man Sean jumped in here and helped out, but I do want to cover it for everybody. So appreciate you, Sean, getting Great White Shark an answer. And just so everyone who, in case they didn't read it, and this will be helpful to them, question says, when using the late swap tab, do all custom exposure edits, min-max exposures have to be re-entered for remaining games again? I noticed tonight that they do not carry over from a build to the late swap. Therefore, I lost exposures to players not custom boosted, etc., because they return to default. Also, do build rules carry over as well? So this is a really good question. The answer is they can if you want them to. So the way that you do this, I just entered a couple contests here so I can show this. So when you have an entries file in here, the double-sided late swap arrows are going to become active. And then when you click this, down here in the bottom left, this is like a newer setting in case, you guys have been with us for a while. It wasn't here, 6 months ago or something like that. So just be aware of this swap method. When this is set to use default, if you click the drop down, let me get the question out of the way. Swap method down here on the bottom left, there's two options, use defaults and clone current build settings. So if you have a bunch of min-max exposures, you have rules, you have filters, you customized your player pool, right? You checked guys off that you don't want in your lineups, whatever it may be. When you use the clone setting, this will carry all of those things over into a new swap window. So any rules that were active, etc., those will still remain active in the swap window when you clone. Now, when you use defaults, any filters go away, any min-max exposures go away, any projection adjustments go away, any rules that were on will automatically get turned off. They won't get deleted, but they will just be inactive. So those are the big differences between the two here is the use defaults and clone current build settings. I think most people prefer the cloning option, but just depends what you're trying to accomplish. But that is how you control that and determine if those things do indeed carry over or not. So I just want to make sure we covered that. All right, question here from Henry. Henry said, if using the same build for multiple contests, is there a best practice on what order to fill them? Do the single entries 3 max first and then the 20 and 150. Is it recommended to use higher uniques than if you filled all contests at once to increase diversification? For example, if doing 3 different 20 maxes. Okay, so 2 questions here. The first one, is there a best practice on what order to fill? between, if you're running all your lineups together. So really, in my opinion, there's kind of two ideas here. I would recommend filling them by like either highest entry fee first, or like highest percent to first, or like highest prize. You can do them that way, right? So like if you're playing, 5 contests, but you're playing like one of them it costs you, $1 to enter, and one of them it costs you $20 to enter, another one it costs you $80 to enter. Like I would probably just go with the one where I have the most entry fees. So like if I have, these 2 contests, right? And then I have say I have, 2 different contest sims, one for each of them. Well, if I have that, then I probably would just run both contest sims, fill the lineups for the first contest where I have the most entry fees, and then, trash those lineups and then do the next one and the next one and the next one. So I prefer to go highest entry fee to lowest, but that's my preference. Okay, next question here from Bill's Nut. Let's see. Question says, in a number of I'm sorry, I think I skipped the second question. Is it recommended to use higher uniques than if you field all contests at once to increase diversification? So I don't think there's like a differentiation here between the uniques. Like I would just, use the uniques and try to get to a high setting, right? So like the way that Jordan recommends using it is like max it out and then use one less than the max. I use it a little bit differently. Like I just usually, like what I do is I run a contest sim, and then I'm comfortable using min uniques to the point where the last lineup in my pool is about neutral ROI. So taking that number as far as I can until I get to like a negative ROI, and then raising it from there. So similar like schools of thought there. They might end up working out similar, but that's just how I use it. So I wouldn't say you have to use it differently depending on, which way you are filling your contests. Okay, next question. Question was, in a number of NBA 20 maxes this past week, I finished fairly high with my top lineups 8th, 20th, 30th, etc. because payouts are top heavy. I came away with a tiny profit, but not much to build my bankroll. I noticed many of the players who finished above me were SaberSim users, and I wondered if we're all using the same tool. Do I have a realistic chance of beating them? My process is pretty simple, following what has been suggested here. I assume they all have specialized tweaks to their process that get them to the top. Not sure what to do from here. Good question. So really, there is like a lot of variance when you get to like the top of these contests, guys. So, just to like kind of put it in perspective, right? Like say you're playing, the $1.20 max, right? The $1.20 max has usually around like 35,000 entries, right? So if we do 35,000, there's a lot of talk around like top 1% equity, right? Well, like if you do the math here and you get in the top 1%, you're still in like the top 350 lineups. Like that's great, but you're still not making a ton of money at that level, right? So like aside from top 1%, we really need to be looking at like top 0.1%, right? So then you go from like 35,000 and do 0.0, and then it would be 1. So then be 0 again, 1. So this would be the top 0.1% equity here, right? So then now you're in the top 35 lineups. Well, the difference between, first and 35th is like pretty substantial, right? But you're already in this like fraction of the contest mathematically here. So really, in order to win, you need to be so high. You need to be like 35,000 times, we did 0.1. So we need to be in like the top 0.01, right? So 0.00001. And then that gets you like to third, right? So like from here, there's so much variance when you're already in the top 0.01% of the contest. Like, are you in the top 0.07? Are you in the top 0.14? And like that changes the payout significantly. So like what I'm trying to say is like, hey, when you get, to the very, very top of these contests, the top 0.01, of the field, there is a lot of variance, like where you fall. in that range there. So like, I don't think that, coming in 8th is like bad. Like, oh, I didn't come in first. Like, no, you're already in, the top margin of the contest. You're doing something right. You just need to keep doing what you're doing and let like the variance fall your way, where yeah, you end up in the top 0.01%, but instead of the top 0.01%, you end up in like the top 0.08% instead of the top 0.1012%. And like, we're talking about fractions, like, guys, we're talking about like incredibly small numbers here, which is why the variance is so high. So I don't think you're doing anything wrong. When you say the part about like, hey, if we're all using the same tool, do I have a realistic chance of beating them? Well, I think that, you kind of proved yourself wrong that way, because you said that the people finishing higher than you were also SaberSim users. So like, if they're beating you, that means you can beat them, right? So you got to flip that on its head. Like, hey, do I have a chance of beating them? Well, they had a chance of beating you, and that worked out for them, right? So definitely that means that you can also beat them. So doesn't sound like you're doing anything wrong. You're finishing really high in some of these contests. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. And I would just stick with your solid process. And then remember to always be reviewing. You can go back to any past slate here, review your lineups. You want to go back to yesterday's 7-game slate. You want to go and look through contest flashback. You want to go see how you did. Maybe even study these other players, right? Like, hey, who finished above you that you were talking about, right? So you go in here, and then we go to the $1.20 max, like 35,000 entries, right? So then, hey, I come in here, I look up my own portfolio and I see how I did. And then, hey, who was the person that finished above me? What does their portfolio of lineups look like in contest flashback? And then you can kind of see some of the differences. And then maybe you figure out like, hey, what are they doing that I didn't do, or et cetera here, right? So I think there's a lot of different ways you could do that. And I would probably be working that into your day-to-day routine if you're not already doing that. Okay, good question there. Next question here. Question says, my question has to do with late swap. I generally use Lightning Bolt, or if I have a few entries, I will manually change them on DraftKings. I've created dummy late swaps and I've noticed the sim will take stars out and replace them with scrubs. Is there any way I can prevent this on late swap? So I don't exactly know what a dummy late swap is. I'm a little confused by it. So I might have to just go back and forth with you on this one in the Discord. And I'll just respond right now saying, can you please elaborate on what you mean by dummy late swap? So a little confused about that one. So we can go back and forth here in the Discord and I can get back to you there. But don't really know where to go from there without a little more context. So we'll go back and forth on there. And if there's something that comes up in that conversation, where we figure out, what to do, I can mention it here on the show for anybody else interested in that topic. Anytime there's a good conversation, I try and mention it on the show. That way others can, hear the same message and take advantage of that info. So I'll make sure to do that on my end. But with that said, it looks like we're all caught up with questions in the Discord and nothing in the YouTube chat here. So before we get out of here, guys, I do want to remind you, I'm going to mention this at the beginning and end of each show. This week, we are moving office hours Monday through Friday to 4 p.m. Eastern starting next Monday. And then we are also going to be having office hours on Saturdays now at 11 a.m. Eastern. So plenty of communication around those two things coming for you guys. But I just wanted you to know we're moving office hours from 5 days a week to 6 days a week. And then the show time is moving Monday through Friday. So I will keep mentioning that throughout the week here. But until tomorrow, everybody, take care. Good luck. I'll see you all. Thanks. Bye.